Imagine waking up every single day and knowing that every decision you make is entirely your own. No boss, no deadlines, no fear of layoffs, just freedom. But for most people, it's just a dream, something they think belongs to the rich or the lucky. But what if I told you the rich don't get lucky, they get intentional? In this documentary, I'm going to show you the exact blueprint that the 1% use to retire early. Not at 60, but at 40, or even 30. And the best part? I'm giving you this entire system for free, because financial freedom shouldn't come with a $2,000 course price tag. Most people live their entire lives in financial quicksand. They get a paycheck, they spend it, and they wait for the next one. It's not life, it's survival. 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Over 70% have less than $1,000 saved. The system isn't designed to set you free. It's designed to keep you just comfortable enough to come back every Monday. Comfortable enough to not question, but never comfortable enough to escape. I want you to meet someone, Mark. He was 32, corporate finance manager. $72,000 a year. On paper, he was living the dream. But in reality, he was drowning in debt, barely scraping by. He had no savings, just a collection of monthly payments. Mark wasn't lazy. He wasn't irresponsible. He was just caught, like millions of others. The average American carries $5,700 in credit card debt. For Mark, the breaking point came quietly, almost invisibly. It wasn't a crash or a disaster. It was a single moment. When he checked his balance and saw $72.14. The rent was due in 6 days, and his next paycheck was 9 days away. It was in that moment, sitting alone in his car, staring at his phone screen, that he realized, this can't be it. This can't be life. Not forever. And so he did what most people do. He searched. Late at night, after work, Mark dove into YouTube, forums, blogs, looking for something, anything that could pull him out of the quicksand. He found scams. He found empty promises. But then he found something different, the FIRE movement. Mark made a decision. He wasn't just going to survive, he was going to escape. And it all started with a simple mindset shift. The idea that every dollar is a soldier, and those soldiers could be sent out to bring back more. For Mark, the decision was made. He was going to break out of the cycle, not just temporarily, but for life. He wasn't going to rely on a boss, a promotion, or even the economy. He was going to build something bigger, something unbreakable, and that's when he found it. The FIRE blueprint. Financial independence. Retire early. The FIRE movement has grown by 112% year over year since 2020, according to Fidelity Wealth Management. The first step to financial freedom isn't earning more, it's knowing your FIRE number. This is the exact amount of money you need invested to never work again if you don't want to. It's simple. You take your annual expenses and multiply by 25. That's it. If you spend $40,000 a year, your FIRE number is $1 million. The 4% rule, a principle that says you can safely withdraw 4% of your investments every year without running out of money. The truth is, most people don't have an income problem. They have a spending problem. Mark wasn't any different. Before he could start investing, he had to stop the bleeding. Mark did something radical. He tracked every single dollar for 90 days. He found that $250 a month was going to subscriptions he didn't use. Another $400 went to eating out and fast food. By the end of that 90 days, he cut his living expenses by $1,100 per month. The average American spends $18,000 a year on non-essential items. Most people think the only way to make more money is to get a promotion. But Mark learned something powerful. The rich don't trade time for money. They trade value for money. So he did what the wealthy do. He learned a high-income skill, something that pays well, scales easily, and doesn't require a college degree. High-income skills Mark explored: copywriting, writing sales pages and email sequences; digital marketing, SEO, paid ads, funnel optimization; Notion consulting, setting up digital workspaces for remote teams. Mark didn't just stop with a high-income skill. He did what the rich do. He stacked his income. He turned one source of cash flow into three. People with 3 or more income streams are 70% more likely to be financially independent by 45. This is where the magic happened. Mark wasn't just earning money, he was sending it out to work for him. He built his first escape fund, a portfolio designed to buy back his time. Every $1,000 he invested was another 40 hours of freedom. The rule of 72. If you invest $10,000 at 10%, it doubles every 7.2 years without you touching it. For Mark, the journey to financial independence wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming his life. He knew the path was set: income stacking, ruthless expense cuts, and smart investments. But there was still one final step: the escape plan. Most people think quitting your job is reckless. But what if it was calculated? What if it was strategic? What if it was a blueprint for freedom instead of a leap of faith? Before Mark handed in that letter, he did something the rich always do. He built his safety net first. 1. Emergency fund, 6 months of living expenses. 2. Cash buffer, $10,000 set aside for unexpected costs. 3. Passive income coverage, at least 80% of his monthly living expenses from passive sources. He wasn't just quitting, he was replacing his job with an income system that worked quietly in the background. The average millionaire has 7 streams of income. Mark had 3, and they were growing. Most people think leaving a job means handing in a resignation and walking out the door. But Mark, he did it differently. He transitioned quietly, without noise, without drama. Step-by-step strategy 1. Freelance transition. He reduced his work hours to part-time, supplementing the difference with freelance contracts. 2nd remote work shift. He negotiated to work remotely 2 days a week, allowing him to build his side income. 3. Income matching. His passive income streams had to consistently match 60% of his salary before he would fully leave. And so, week by week, his income from work shrank, and his income from freedom grew. It was a Wednesday morning, clear skies. The office was quieter than usual. Mark had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, but this time was different. This time, it was real. He handed the envelope to his manager. No long conversation, no explanations, just a handshake and a smile. He didn't walk out. He walked free. The average American will spend 13 years and 2 months at work. Mark took 8 years and bought back the rest of his life. His first day out of the system wasn't spent on a beach. It wasn't spent on a plane. It was spent in his living room with a cup of coffee and a notebook titled, "My Life, My Rules." It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't loud, but it was his. And that's what freedom is. Wealth is the ability to fully experience life. Henry David Thoreau. For Mark, the first taste of freedom wasn't just sweet, it was transformational. But what came next? What happens after you leave the 9 to 5 behind? You build something the rich call the silent wealth system, a machine that works while you sleep, grows while you rest, and compounds while you live. This isn't about hustle, it's about design. Designing a system that brings in wealth, quietly, consistently, and without you being involved. Mark's silent wealth system was built on 3 unshakable pillars. 1. Automated investing, the 10% rule. He invested 10% of every single dollar earned, no exceptions. That 10% went directly into a diversified portfolio, S&P 500 index funds, dividend stocks, and global REITs. The average return of the S&P 500 over the past 30 years is 10.5% annually. 2. Passive digital products, infinite ROI. Mark didn't just invest in markets. He invested in himself. He created digital products that paid him long after he created them. Notion templates, productivity guides, and automated workbooks. Digital products have an infinite ROI. One creation, infinite sales. 3. Crowd-funded real estate, the quiet landlord. The third pillar was real estate, but not the traditional kind. Mark invested in crowd-funded properties, fractional ownership of apartment buildings and commercial properties, all managed for him. Crowd-funded real estate has delivered an average of 8 to 12% returns annually over the past decade. The power of automation, the magic of Mark's system, it was fully automated. No stress, no spreadsheets, no constant checking. He used tools to make the system invisible. Mark's automation stack: 1. Wealthfront auto investing in index funds. 2. M1 Finance, dividend reinvestment. 3. Zapier plus ConvertKit, automated email sequences for digital product launches. 4. Fundrise, automatic property distributions. While others were glued to their screens, stressing over market drops and climbing rents, Mark was living. His system was doing the work. Mark doesn't live in a mansion. He doesn't drive a Ferrari. He lives in a modest home with a beautiful view and time. Time to think, time to breathe, time to live. His system grows while he sleeps. His portfolio compounds while he travels. And his income stacks quietly month after month. This is what the 1% don't want you to know. You don't need millions to live like a millionaire. You just need a system. Build assets, not just a paycheck. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mark's life wasn't filled with yachts, private jets, or $10 million mansions. It was filled with something much more valuable: time. Time to read, time to think, time to live intentionally. He woke up when he wanted, worked when he chose, and traveled where he felt drawn, not where his boss sent him. But what made his story truly remarkable wasn't just that he achieved financial independence. It's that he secured it for his family, his children, his grandchildren, and generations to come. Mark didn't just stop with freedom, he built legacy. Through something called the Legacy Fund, he structured his investments to live far beyond his own lifetime. Components of the Legacy Fund: 1. Trust funds, legally protected accounts that grow tax-free until released. 2. Dividend stocks with DRIP, reinvested earnings compounding year after year. 3. Real estate trusts, multifamily properties generating rent managed for him. 4. Crypto savings accounts, designed for long-term holding and compounding. Families who build legacy funds are 76% more likely to maintain generational wealth. Mark's life wasn't extravagant, but it was intentional. He worked when he wanted, not because he had to. He traveled, not as an escape, but as an experience. The true measure of wealth isn't what you own, it's what you can walk away from. Mark built something he could walk away from, and that is the true meaning of FIRE. Financial independence, retire early. Most people think financial freedom is reserved for the rich, but I'm here to show you it's reserved for the intentional. And that's why I'm giving you this entire blueprint for free. Everything I teach, others charge thousands for, but I'm giving it away because financial independence should never come with a price tag. If you're ready to build this life, not someday, but now, then join me. Watch the full playlist, Passive Income Mastery. Next video, how to make $5,000 a month with AI-powered passive income. For weekly deep dives on freedom, wealth, and living life on your terms. Comment, I'm building my legacy. The difference between those who dream of freedom and those who live it is one decision, one action, one blueprint. It's yours if you're ready.